Welcome to the investing lecture on altcoin dangers. This is going to be a wake-up call to counteract the siren's call of altcoins. Everybody thinks they're an easy ticket to big money, but we're about to dive into some details here so that you know precisely what you're dealing with. So incentives are a very powerful thing. Just like a rat that needs to chew through a wall to get to food that's lying on the other side, humans can be incredibly creative when they need to achieve a certain outcome. It doesn't matter whether it's at the detriment to somebody else, or whether it causes harm, or whether there is some sort of concealed way that they need to get to their goals. People, as long as there's incentives, like the breadcrumbs, they'll eventually find their way to their reward when they try hard enough. So ask yourselves, what is your incentive in the market? Well, you feel like you want to make the most money possible, right? So you go onto a website like CoinGecko, for example, and you can sort the performance column, like the 7-day performance column of literally every altcoin in existence. And you can scroll up to the top of the list and you can say, oh my God, well, look, some random token managed to pump 100,000% in the last week. That could be me. I didn't catch this one, but maybe I could catch the next one. So I need to hold a whole bag of altcoins just in case it's me. Putting aside the fact that this is a massive gambling mindset and you should not be applying this whatsoever, but the function of these altcoins is actually not to serve you at all. It couldn't be further from the truth. The main delusion here, obviously, like I mentioned, is that people think that the altcoins serve to make them money, when they forget that it's actually the people who designed the tokens in the first place. It's actually designed to make them wealthy. The people who created them wanted to get wealthy, which is why they existed in the first place. But I bet you conveniently forgot about that, didn't you? Out of sight, out of mind. If you think that for some reason that these people created these tokens out of the goodness of their heart to create wealth for you, you're fucking delusional. Remember, the incentives were always so that they made the most money possible, and I'll show you why. If you look at this chart that I've displayed on the screen here, you can see this research from Masari that actually gives you an indication of the proportion of the allocations for the different cryptocurrencies that are held by insiders. Also with the public sale, the community allocations, and the foundations and more. But ultimately it's the insiders. They're the ones that we're looking at right now. So when you see the pink or the salmon color on your screen, or orange depending on what your color blindness level is, you can see that there's a varying degree of insider interest in different token projects. Now this is directly related to the incentives that different tokens have to mislead people and to generate wealth for themselves. You can see a token like EOS, for example, which only has a 10% insider stake. We know for a fact that EOS doesn't have much public promotion. It kind of disappears, like nobody's really looking after it. It's only a very small percentage. But when you have something like Blockstack or Internet Computer or Flow or Nia or CeeLo or Binance or Solana or Avalanche, these tokens are tokens that are massively held by insiders. These are the tokens that have all of the promotional activities stacked against you. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so we'll just slow down for a second. The point that I was trying to get at here is that a lot of insider people are holding these tokens and not the overall market. So they have an outsized incentive to do certain things that generate wealth for themselves rather than generate wealth for other people. Now, this is human nature. Obviously, everybody is somewhat self-interested. But the good news is this is how it's meant to be. Capitalism actually captures this effect and it aligns the selfish interests of individuals with the benefit of society. New goods and services get created so that they can sell them to the open market when people pay for them. Wealth is created for the inventors and the entire economy benefits as a result. Now, this is good, and it always remains good for the overall economy and society, provided the incentive structures are still in alignment, and that you have the incentives for things like this aligned with not only the creation of these technologies and these services, but also their maintenance and continued development. But we find out that often that's not the case. So here's a quick story time to give you a bit of context behind what's actually going on here. Google is a fantastic example of this. Many years ago, Google unofficially adopted what is known as the launch, promo, and abandon cycle. This really explains why they went through a period of their history several years ago where they had new chat apps, new teamwork applications, new social medias, new tools coming out almost every single week. Because everybody that was working for the company actually had their incentive structures aligned with launches and not with the maintenance of their core money-making systems. Google could have been a much larger company if they had their incentive structures aligned correctly. Alas, this is not the case. However, you can actually go to a website called killedbygoogle.com and find 275 instances of projects and ideas that were launched by Google and then subsequently abandoned. The reason being, like I have mentioned previously, is because the incentive structure was always aligned with the selfish desires of the individuals who were in charge of those projects. So they would launch, they would promote, they would make it look amazing, so then they could get their own promotions, their own bonuses. And of course, because there was no incentive to maintain them or provide any extra value for the people that were using these services, they were then destroyed or cancelled or whatever it was. And this is really the same type of analogy that we have for the cryptocurrency market. So when it comes to the cryptocurrency market and how their incentive structures are aligned, you can see that it's very, very similar to the way that Google managed their projects, the launch, promo, and abandon cycle. And top secret trick right here, Alpha Drop, they're all the same people. They're all the same coders from Silicon Valley. They're all the same people who know the tech, they know how to launch, they know how to gather teams together. All of these people with their specialty expertise, all the blockchain designers, they're all from these same companies. So they're very familiar with these processes and they know precisely how to get what they want. Now, the most dangerous part of all of this process, because it wouldn't be really that bad except for this one dimension of this whole process, which is the promotion part of the process. The problem here is that it's not good enough to just launch. They also need to promote as well. Now, this is where things start to fall apart for the retail traders. So you have the promotions start to come out and they tell you that it's the best thing since sliced bread. They brainwash everybody in the market to thinking that it's their secret trick, that this token project is going to change the world. It's going to moon harder than anything else you've seen before. It'll make instant millionaires from everybody that touches the project. Of course they'll tell you this, because this is where their incentives are aligned. They will post their logo everywhere. They will bribe influencers. They will pay politicians off. They'll hire celebrities. They'll slap TV ads. They will spend almost an unlimited amount of money in order to get your attention so that they can dump on your ass. Now, this is a well-known fact in the financial markets. Whenever you have a new corporation launch or a new token launch, essentially, the function of this entire project or this entire operation is to actually generate what's called exit liquidity. This is where individuals like yourself or myself, if I was subject to brainwashing like this, believe the marketing that they push to you, either through influencers who are kind of like guerrilla marketing or through direct influencers, which is familiarization with the logos and the advertising and everything. And you are then compelled to purchase these tokens and generate the buying pressure that actually sustains the price to the degree that when they are selling in the background, because their only concern, they bought these tokens as insiders for like 1 cent, and you're buying it from them at like 100, 200, 300x multiple, like $1, $2, $3 or whatever it is. I'm just making up examples, but they're using you as exit liquidity so that they can get out of their positions that they've spent, a year or two in because they were developing it behind the scenes. And now you're coming along and digging up the marketing and, appreciating it and being like, oh, this is amazing. And then they just dump on your ass and you're the one left holding the bag in the end. The point here is that you think that they're angels. You think that the marketing's fantastic. You think the project is virtuous. And then because of this marketing, you're psychologically bound to the project. You think that it's worth something. You think that maybe the community is correct because all of the deluded people kind of form groups together. And this is really bag holding personified to the highest degree, because as it starts to fall, you're in denial and you don't believe that it could possibly go down because the marketing was so amazing, right? It was meant to change the world. However, you're still forgetting the fundamental principle that the token's existence was always to serve the insiders, and it was never to serve you in the first place. So this is where the cognitive dissonance is kind of preventing you from selling your bags even when you start to see it go down. The next major problem when it comes to altcoins, and especially bag holding, is also the excessive time-based exposure phenomenon, or this is really an application of FOMO to the highest degree. So if you have all of this marketing, or for example, just anecdotally experienced events where you're sitting there in the market and you see suddenly the price of a token that you've been watching go up by like 100x and everybody's freaking out over it, and you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that one was coming. And I hold like a whole bunch of other shit as well. So I don't know when they're going to go up as well. So I have to hold all of them. But this is wrong as well. This is a faulty mindset, because you would actually be surprised at how little time you actually need to hold altcoins in the total sum of your lifetime exposure to actually gain the benefits of altcoin pumps. And I'll show you that in the chart that follows. So if you look at the chart that I've put on the screen right now, what you'll see is the last cryptocurrency bull run that happened over 2020, 2021, and you can see that towards the end of the Bitcoin bull market, when hype was at its highest, there was only really a 50-day window, or maybe slightly wider depending on how you take your measurement, where altcoins were really pumping, where random shit was really pumping. And that was really at the tail end. So you can see there that a lot of crazy market activity was happening, but it was only at the very end. And you could have been in Bitcoin that whole way up and just simply rotated into altcoins, quadruple million timed your profit, and you would have never needed to hold your altcoins for that entire time anyway. And if we go even further out, if you zoom out and look at those 50 days over the course of that entire bull run, if you take it from the cycle bottom, those 50 days is only equivalent to 5% of the entire time that you could have been exposed to the market during that time. 5%. So ask yourself, is it really worth bag holding your altcoins for 100% of the time, especially when they go down faster than Bitcoin in a bear market, and they sustain a flat level of performance for longer during a bull market, and only at the very last second they come up? Is it really worthwhile holding them for that long? Is it really worthwhile bag holding and having excessive time-based exposure? FOMO, oh no, I don't know if it's ever going to pump. Meanwhile, your entire net worth is being degraded into oblivion. Not really. No, that's a bad way of approaching it. Altcoins and random projects are really only good at the tail end of a crypto bull market. Actually, it's more useful as a signal. So when you see altcoins starting to moon, that's generally an indication that you're starting to get towards the end of the bull market. So insider trick right there. Now, I've touched on qualitative analysis and how we generally don't use it. And the whole discussion comes up on how do we select good tokens? How do we know what's good and what isn't? Generally, we're approaching this from a quantitative standpoint, and that is the main methodology that I use to approach the cryptocurrency market, because it's very objective, it can be learned quickly. We've already covered all this stuff. However, there will be a very short course on qualitative token selection given in the investing masterclass. So stick around for that afterwards, and I'll take you through a couple of bits and pieces. It will not be exhaustive, however, it'll just give you a little bit, just enough so that you can make some good decisions for yourself, just based off my experience. So in summary, altcoins and tokens are really created so that insiders can dump on their followers and cash out so that they can make the most money possible. They're not designed for altruistic purposes, they're not designed to serve you. They have no desire to help you as an individual. They're very selfish, and that's okay, because that is the design of capitalism. That's how the market should be. Understanding this is really the magic key to having your mind unlocked so that you can realize what's kind of a player versus player market looks like. Token demand and hype is manufactured to increase the amount of demand for the tokens so that they can dump on you. And generally, one of the main memes that they use in order to force you to do this psychologically is the HODL meme. And you'll see this a lot, so never hodl. Hodling is a psyop designed by the altcoin market. It's really been adopted from the Bitcoin market as well to absolutely fuck up the most amount of retail trade as possible. So don't be married to your bags. Don't become obsessed with them. Don't feel anything about them. Don't like any projects. Don't hold forever. Be very objective, be skeptical, and stay alive. It's also a good idea to remind yourself that most token projects are abandoned by the people that created them as soon as they've served their purpose. Again, this feeds back into the FOMO and the excessive time-based exposure principle. Don't go bag holding into the next bull market thinking that maybe if you hold through a whole cycle, it'll somehow benefit you, because it won't. And final point is to remember that alts pump at the tail end of bull markets most of the time, which means that you should always be holding your majors like Bitcoin and Ethereum through the majority of the bull market and then swapping into altcoins at the very end, catching a few pumps and then getting the fuck out and then never coming back to them, because remembering that they're not there to serve you. So guys, what I've covered here is all the altcoin dangers, the incentives behind the different teams and why you shouldn't be trusting them. And hopefully after you've learned all of this, you'll be better prepared for approaching the cryptocurrency market and making good selections about your holdings. I'll see you in the next one.